Hey guys, it's Katie up here in the Dublin Academy of Education, and basically what I'm going to do today is just break down what you need to be doing for your Spanish Leaving Cert now that the oral exams are, thank God, over and done with. So basically we've got 5 things up here on our whiteboard. We've got the oral exam, the reading comprehensions, the opinion piece or the essay question as some of you might know it as, and the dialogue instruction, and then the choice question between the diary and the note. So looking at these now, we need to find out what it is that you can be doing from now until the 18th of June in order to make sure that you do the best possible exam. So, looking at your oral exam. Now, my very own 6-years got this feedback in their mock papers. They were told that they need to be aware of the fact that there's no negative marking scheme when it comes to the oral exam. So basically what that means is that you can't necessarily be penalised for writing a little bit too much. Now, in saying that, you shouldn't be writing sentences or paragraphs for all of your answers, but you can afford to have a couple of little extra words and not be penalised by the marking scheme, which is really good news. So, no negative marking scheme. However, what you do need to make sure that you are really strict with yourself with are the question words. Now, this is the stupidest mistake to make in any of your exams for the Leaving Cert. And it's something that as a teacher, we get so annoyed having to tell our students to keep doing this, or having to dock marks from students, from candidates in the state exams for this, right? If you read the question properly, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to answer the question properly. You need to make sure that you're highlighting the question words and that you're not misreading the word where as when and vice versa. Okay? On that note as well, you need to make sure that you are answering in the correct language. That is one of the other most frustrating things, is when a student is providing the right answer but in the incorrect language. If the question is in English, you answer in English. If the question is in Spanish, you answer in Spanish. Okay? So that's the oral exam. Second thing then, the reading comprehensions. The thing that are probably the most difficult or the most boring to study, it's just a question of practice until it makes perfect. So what you do need to do is, this is probably the biggest difference here. So we've got no negative marking scheme for the oral exam and then a little bit more of a stricter marking scheme for the reading comprehensions. So you need to be really strict with your answers. Some of the marking schemes as the years go by will say that candidates literally need to be penalised for omitting words or for adding extra words in some of their answers. So looking at things like where you have to find synonyms, making sure that you understand the message of the word, if not the word itself, and then looking for the piece of the text that has the same message or is a direct translation of that word. And if it's one word, sometimes your answer might actually be 2 or 3 words, or vice versa. Okay, the next thing then with the reading comprehensions is to prioritise your time. Now, what a lot of students will say is that they have a little bit too much time in the Spanish exam for their Leaving Cert, and that's absolutely fine. You can leave a little bit early if needs be. However, when you're in there, you need to kind of look at the exam and say, okay, how many marks is this worth? How long do I need to be spending on this? There's some questions on your Spanish reading comprehension questions that are worth 1 mark. And students will spend upwards of 3, 4, 5 minutes on that 1 mark question, rather than just highlighting it and saying I'll come back to it at the end of the exam and use the rest of my time wisely. Why would you spend 5 minutes on literally a 1 mark question when you could have an extra 5 minutes to work on your opinion piece or your dialogue instruction, which are worth significantly more marks? Okay, so prioritise your time and be strict with your answers. Now, the next thing, on the journalistic text, you all know that question 4 is a kind of rephrasing style question. So you will be given 2 sentences in Spanish, you choose one of them. You make it very clear to the examiner which one it is that you've chosen, because they're not actually labelled as A or B. So my advice to you first of all would be to write out the full sentence in Spanish that you've chosen to translate, or you've chosen to rephrase, and then go from there. This is going to be your best friend in terms of practicing with your papers, or if you're doing mock papers in class, or if you're lucky enough to be in an iPad school that you have access to this all the time. This website, www.sinonimosonline.com. And basically what this does is you put in a Spanish word and it will give you a list of other Spanish words with a similar or the same meaning. So brilliant way of upping your vocab and having a nice little vocab bank and really solid answers for question 4 of your journalistic text. Now the other thing is, although the reading comprehensions are full of brilliant Spanish, brilliant communication, brilliant language skills, you cannot quote them in your opinion piece. Okay, yes, it might be really handy because you might get a word that you've forgotten in your opinion piece and see it again in the reading comprehension and it triggers your memory and you can use that word. However, you cannot be simply pulling full phrases, full paragraphs, 3 or 4 lines of text from the comprehension put it into your opinion piece and expect the examiner to not realise. So not a good thing to be doing in a Leaving Cert. Now, question 3 then, the dreaded opinion piece, the piece that every single candidate is petrified of. What if I go in and I don't understand what the question means, or what if I go in and I haven't done that topic? First of all, relax. You've done 6 years of Spanish, there's no way that you're going to go into your Leaving Cert exam and not be able to produce something substantial. Okay? So, basically what you do need to realise though is that the more that you write, the more room for error you have. And while it's brilliant to see that some students and some candidates in the exams are able to write a page, 2 pages, maybe upwards of 2 pages on a single topic in Spanish, it's also only a 50-mark question. And yes, that's an important amount of marks, but also you're not expected to write that much. The question will say between 80 and 150 words, and if you go over that, you're not going to be penalised once it's not to a huge extent. I would recommend aiming for maximum 1 A4 page with good structure, either use of paragraphs or skipping lines in between your points. You want to make sure that you have a short introduction, a short conclusion, and then 3 solid points in your answer. But again, the more that you write, the more room you have for error. Okay? What you should be aiming for is a variety of tenses, a variety of subjects, so that you're not just saying yo, or pienso que, or creo que, or yo estoy de la opinión de. You should be really trying to aim for a variety of tenses, variety of people with your tenses, and if you're really aiming for a H1, you need to be showing that, not that you obviously are trying to get the subjunctive in, but that you recognise a situation where the subjunctive is necessary and correct grammar, and producing that in your answer. Okay, so then we come to the dialogue construction, and the dialogue construction, in my opinion, is probably one of the easiest ways to get to up your marks in your state exam. So as you know, it's a 30-mark question, and each section of the dialogue construction is worth the same amount of marks. It's worth 6 marks per piece. What you need to be focusing on are the verbs. If your verbs are incorrect, that's going to cost you marks. That's just how the marking scheme works. However, once you've got your verbs nailed, what you then need to be looking at is what's the idea of the text. Okay, what does the State Examination Commission want me to say? And I will never forget when I was studying Italian in college and we had a translation teacher, and she said translation is all about messages. What is the message of the text versus a literal word-for-word translation? And the best example of that I can give is in English. If I said it's raining cats and dogs, if I said that in Spanish, a Spaniard would have no idea what I mean. They would literally think that there are cats and dogs coming out of the sky. However, if I said it's lashing rain or it's really, really raining hard, that's what I'm actually trying to say. That's the message. So how can you convey the same message using good Spanish? So don't go in and think you have to look at every single word that's given in front of you. You just need to be making sure that you're kind of having the same, if not a very similar idea in your own Spanish. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to have a quick chat about is the diary or the note. So obviously you have a choice with these. Some students choose to answer both because they have a little bit of extra time. That's fine. You're only going to get marked on one of them. But you have a choice, and again, this is a really small question of your exam. This is only 20 marks, so what you don't want to be doing is, again, like what we said for the opinion piece, writing a ton of stuff. You want to be making sure that your answer is short, to the point, and with good, concise Spanish. So what I would say is for the diary entry, to maybe aim for 2 or 3 sentences per point, like we have here. For the note, you could even just aim for 2, if not 1 sentence per point. You need to make sure that your verbs are in the correct tense, and again, that the message of each point is the same. What I would also say is, although there's no strict marks going for it, if, again, especially if you're someone who struggles a little bit with Spanish, you might really try to make sure that your structure of your answer is bang on. So that you have, for your diary entry, that you maybe have the day and the time written in the top right hand corner, that you have querido diario on another line, that you have your name at the bottom of the page, and that you're not covering the whole bottom of the page in emojis or kisses or anything like that, and that your points are all very separate. So that worst case scenario, at least it's very easy for the examiner to read, and they can break your answer down a little bit and really try to award you marks, rather than trying to make sense of a very jumbled up, messy piece of paper and trying to look for where they can give you any marks. Okay, with the note, again, if you want to be thinking of structure, what you should be doing is maybe just making sure that you have the time and maybe the day or the date Try to think of what you'd actually do if you were leaving a note for someone at home. I know we're also used to just texting someone or sending a voice note on WhatsApp or Snapchatting someone or something and telling them where you are. Everyone knows where you are anyway because of your Instagram story, let's be honest. But if you had to go old school and leave someone a note, you're probably going to tell them what time you left the note at, or maybe what date it was on, or something like that. And then you would address the person really short, quick, to the point Spanish, because you're rushing out the door, remember. But also that you are acknowledging who you're writing to. Are you writing to someone who's maybe a little bit more prestigious than yourself? Are you writing to someone that you don't really know that well? Do you need to be addressing them formally or informally? And really trying to focus on all of your verbs. Okay? So basically guys, that's everything that you need to know about the paper. The only other thing I could say is, obviously you're not going to be doing a Spanish paper every single day from now until June. So what can you be doing to really make sure that you're not forgetting your Spanish while all of the Irish oral exams are going on and the music practicals and all of those really stressful things? My genuine recommendation to you would be to download something like Duolingo or Babbel, or a little app that you can spend 5 minutes on every day when you're scrolling in your phone when you're lying in bed. For the sake of 5 minutes, go on to Duolingo, do a placement test, see how far you get down, and then just work through all of the different levels and the different tasks. You've no idea how beneficial something like that can be. If you are a Netflix addict like myself, you can literally search Spanish language on Netflix and everything that comes up will be in Spanish, and it will also have English subtitles. So when you're sitting there watching mindless TV, why not be at least kind of subconsciously taking a little bit more Spanish while you're scrolling on your phone? Why not take 5 minutes to, really kind of do something a little bit more beneficial like Duolingo or Babbel, and just make sure that you're doing something consistent all the time, because a language really is a process. So yeah, I hope that was of some benefit. I'm wishing you all buena suerte en los exámenes, and best of luck guys. See you later.